Evergreen State College is a small liberal arts school in Olympia, Washington. You may be surprised to learn that this school is led by a gang of vile racists. That viewpoint is well articulated by an Evergreen student.
It's an accident that all of our administration is white.
Right.
It's not an accident. That shit is systematic as fuck. So while we sit down here.
In this video, I'll review the charges of racism posed by the Evergreen students, and I'll give my interpretation and opinion on those charges. I'll also try to say what I think should be done in this situation.
We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound?
Evergreen traditionally holds an event called the Day of Absence, which is where students and faculty of color do not attend in order to make their contributions to the community more apparent by their conspicuous absence. This year, they decided to invert the tradition by asking white students and staff to not attend for the Day of Absence. One professor, Brett Weinstein, objected to this proposed change on the following grounds.
There is all the difference in the world between a population absenting themselves from a shared space and a population telling another population to go away. And my point was that speech has to be free on a college campus and that everybody has to be free to be there.
If you want more detail on this summary, I'd suggest the Rubin Report episode, link in the description, as a good place to start and hear things, from one side at least, direct from the professor's mouth. There is one comment from Brett that I disagree with.
Basically, you had no problem with that.
I had no problem with it happening. I don't find anything wrong with it. I have one concern about it, which is that a college is not a town. And so when the black population of Evergreen, or later the people of color, don't show up, the college does not grind to a halt. So I have a concern that it doesn't quite make the point that it's supposed to make. But I have no problem with the desire to make that point, and I have no desire with people deciding to absent themselves. That's
Brett and a lot of people who are now confused that they are suddenly being called racists don't grasp the connection here. The students are acting rationally. They're acting according to what they have been taught. When you teach students that they are the victim of social oppression and that they have to search for microaggressions, that systemic racism is in place to keep them down, when you teach students all of these things, some percentage of them will start to believe it. Those who do believe it will start to advance the argument you've taught them. You teach children to connect race to everything, and that differences in outcomes are a result of systematic oppression. When you teach kids these things, you shouldn't be surprised when they start applying them, even to you. If you're Evergreen College, and your professors and your administrators are mainly white, how can you deny that your system is racist based upon what you've taught your students? Minority students absenting themselves from campus sounds reasonable, but it is a starting point that leads to a bad end. Rather than teach students that they are oppressed and that they must struggle against their white oppressors, students should be taught to overcome obstacles in their lives through hard work and perseverance. It is true that some people are racist, and some people start life with terrible disadvantages. But discriminating yourself and separating people along racial lines is not going to overcome those problems, though hard work and perseverance may. And both hard work and perseverance are productive and valuable in their own right. An obvious response to what I've said here is that it is easier to say, work hard and persevere, when you aren't the subject of racism, or that what I've said minimizes the experiences of individuals who have experienced racism. Both of these responses are correct. It is easier to say work hard and persevere than it is to actually work hard and persevere. Nevertheless, hard work and perseverance are good, productive virtues that will benefit all students. Teaching students to focus on differences and divisive behavior is not productive. It won't benefit those students. Ergo, it is clearly better to teach hard work than divisive behavior. At the start of this video, I said I'd give my opinion on what I thought should happen at Evergreen, and then I played this clip, which is a reference to the Kent State Massacre. That's intended as hyperbole. but I did think about Kent State while researching Evergreen. The Kent State Massacre involved National Guardsmen shooting at unarmed college protesters of the Vietnam War. 4 students died in the massacre and 9 others were seriously wounded. The Kent State Massacre is galling. The National Guardsmen who murdered those students never faced criminal justice. The National Guardsmen who fired on those students should have faced a criminal trial. The National Guardsmen aren't the only people responsible, though. The mayor of Kent and the governor of Ohio decided to call up the National Guard. They decided that in order to deal with protesting college students, they needed to deploy the National Guard, young men with rifles and fixed bayonets, likely not well trained with handling protests or riots. The current protests at Evergreen are a lot like this. It's easy to think of the Evergreen students as being obnoxious, childish jerks, and they are. However, just like the National Guardsmen shooting innocent college students at Kent State, these obnoxious Evergreen protesters aren't the only people responsible. The Evergreen Administration who deployed them is responsible as well. The Evergreen Administration taught their students the lessons of seeing everything as racial oppression. They taught their students to protest, and that there would be no consequences for poor behavior. The actions of Evergreen students are deplorable, but they are a predictable conclusion of the deplorable ideology that they have been taught.
Do y'all need anything at all? The people who are in this room watching this happen, are y'all clear? Cool. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
What you just saw there was the president of Evergreen College, George Bridges, asking a protester if he can, quote, go pee, end quote. And George is denied by the protester. George says, I need to pee, and the protester tells him, hold it, before walking off. The truly terrible thing in this situation is the way the university administrators have bowed to the onslaught from the students. How can George Bridges be expected to run a university if he cannot even convince his own students to let him urinate? The humiliating, contemptible capitulation of Evergreen administrators beggars belief. The administrators, especially the president, George Bridges, have completely failed. They are failing in their primary duty, which is to provide a place for students to learn and faculty to teach. An angry mob of racist students are currently occupying the campus and disturbing the environment.
Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go! Hey hey! Teachers have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go! Hey hey! Ho ho! These racist teachers have got to go! Black power! Black power! Black power! Black power! Black power! Black power!
And rather than oppose this mob, the faculty of Evergreen College have chosen cowardice. They have chosen to let these students run riot and ruin the atmosphere of the college environment, which should be conducive to study and learning, as well as an egalitarian place to express different ideas and discuss them. Not only are the administrators responsible for failing to protect the campus, they are responsible for teaching this divisive ideology to their students and promoting its spread amongst the student body. What's happening at Evergreen College is disturbing, but it's also insightful. It shows us the end state of the extreme social justice position. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button to let me know. If you want to see more content in a similar style, then go ahead and click the subscribe button. Thanks for your time.
Rude. Rude! Rude! Get the fuck out of here! Fucking leave! Yeah, that's probably best. I was feeling a little dehydrated. I appreciate the water, by the way. Fuck you! Oh, please don't. I'm So on a modification. Whoa! 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 Whoa!